Hey everybody, Coach Stacy Lynn. Hello people. I'm glad that you have joined me today for a short, encouraging, hopefully pep talk. If you don't know who I am, I want to welcome you to the channel. I am Certified Master Christian Life Coach Stacy Lynn Harp, and I am here to help you have a better day. So, today I want to talk about the consequences of being somebody who actually tells the truth. Now you might be going, what? Why are you going to talk about that? Because a lot of people lie, okay? I'm just saying. So yesterday we talked about being a people pleaser and why that actually is not a good thing. If you missed that video, make sure you go and watch it because I think you'll get a lot out of it. So today, what kind of inspired this topic today is something that I heard somebody say. They were talking about toxic relationships, and they were talking about how when a person is in a family system where they actually start telling the truth, they are the ones that are vilified, and they're always punched. They're always punched, like it's always their fault. They're bagged on because of it. And I thought, you know what, that is so true. So I decided to come up with 10 reasons why we should tell the truth. You should always tell the truth. And so I'm trying to find my list here without deleting my video. Okay, here we are. I'm over here. Yeah, okay. So here is my list of 10 things as to why it is best to be a truth teller. And what I mean by that is not only in general, right, you should always tell the truth, but it's important for your mental health and your relationships. So here's the list. Number one, the number one reason why being a truth teller is important is because you will have less cognitive dissonance. I know those are big terms for some people. Maybe you don't know what it means, but it basically means you're not going to be lying. You're not going to be incongruent. So you're not. And really the best way to describe that is, have you ever seen somebody laughing? They'll laugh while they're telling you something horrible that happened to them. I used to do that all the time. That was before I got help and I learned how to actually be who I am on the outside, on the inside. So when you're telling the truth, you're going to have less cognitive dissonance because you're going to be speaking the truth. You're going to be speaking in line with your own values, which is going to decrease the inner tension that you feel when you're lying. So tell the truth. Okay. Also, you are going to have a greater sense of being whole because when you're actually telling the truth, it's fostering internal stability, and you are no longer you're not going to be playing a role, right? You're not going to be like going, oh, I'm going to pretend that I'm feeling good about this, when the reality is you don't. So you don't have to pretend. Now here's the interesting thing. When you tell the truth, your mental and your physical health are impacted. So here's one way. Your stress load decreases when you tell the truth. So people who lie less actually report fewer feelings of tension and fewer stress symptoms like headaches and sore throats. And by the way, you should always watch how people cough or whatever it is. If you pay attention to their throat and how they speak, that is actually usually an indicator of stress. Just so you know. All right. Better overall health. You will definitely have better overall health when you tell the truth. Even though consequences to other people, maybe they will hate you or whatever, but the bottom line is you will feel physically better. In fact, experimental, quote, honesty interventions show improvements in both mental and physical complaints when people reduce lying and they tell the truth more often. Okay, that's according to some research. Now, I probably shouldn't have to say this, but when it comes to your relationships, you will have deeper trust from other people. I know that's a duh thing, but you would be surprised. People will trust you more if you actually tell them the truth. Truthfulness over time makes others more willing to rely on you and what you're saying, which actually builds strength in your friendships and your family relationships and your work relationships. And yes, even here on YouTube, people, because if you came here and I was lying to you, why would you come back? I mean, almost every single day I'm getting new subscribers, and I think the reason why is because, I'm telling the truth. And if I make a mistake, I will fix it if I know it, okay? So here's the other thing. When you tell the truth, you will also have strained ties in your relationships. That's actually less. So for example, if you are talking about a very sensitive topic and you can be directly honest, what's going to happen is somebody's feelings might get hurt, but it's not going to be this big long thing that's going to be blown out for always. So like, for example, yesterday when I was talking about being a people pleaser, one of the things I was discussing was saying no, right? Because and here, let me give you another example. When you say no, or you actually state what you really want, it may disappoint the other person, but in the long run, it's really the best thing that you can do. And I know this sounds crazy, but I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you and a friend, or you and your spouse, you're hanging out together and you want to get dinner. Let's just say you are really craving pizza, and the other guy, and so you say, where would you like to go for dinner? Hoping secretly that they're going to say, oh, let's get a pizza. But the other person says, I don't know, where would you like to go for dinner? And then you go, well, I don't know. Why don't you tell me where you would go for dinner? And if you're married, you've already had this conversation probably 500 million times. I know my husband and I do, except it's usually over Culver's or Andy's frozen yogurt, people, which is like the best yogurt on the planet. So anyway, so let's just say you want pizza. The person that you're with, they go, well, I kind of prefer to have chicken. So you're like, oh, okay, yeah, all right, well, let's go ahead and have chicken. But you never verbalize that you want pizza. Maybe that person wants pizza. I mean, you never know. And then what happens is you get resentful. Like, you don't want chicken. So next thing you know, you're eating chicken, and then you get mad, you pick a fight, and then you have all this disharmony because you just weren't honest in the first place with what you wanted. Why? Maybe because you were scared, maybe because you didn't want to disappoint the other person. The bottom line is you weren't telling the truth. And so that creates problems. So the thing is you have to be willing to tell the truth, and you have to risk disappointing somebody else. And here's the thing, you are not responsible for how somebody else responds or reacts. And I know that sounds funny to some people, but you're not. You can have empathy, you can show compassion, but you're not responsible for how that person's going to feel. You can't be. Because if you are, then you're going to end up spending your whole life relatively miserable, because you're never going to be able to people please everybody on the planet. So you may as well start actually taking care of your needs first. And there's nothing wrong with taking care of your needs. The problem is most of you have been taught that it is. So just keep that in mind on that point. The next thing is that you will choose truth over convenience, because that reinforces a reputation for reliability and moral consistency, which others often respect even if they disagree. And I'll give you an example of that, actually. So many years ago, when I was in grad school, I was in a cultural diversity class. And in that class, I was told that I had to learn about homosexuality and how it was a different diversity and all this other stuff. And I was fine with that. I understand that issue. But what wasn't being taught in that class is that people can leave homosexuality. They can get healed from it. And I know even here on YouTube, that's fighting words, because my previous channel, I was struck for saying stuff like this. But the reality is, in my grad psych class, they didn't give that option. And so we had to do a paper one year, and I went ahead and I raised my hand and I said, hey, I'd like to interview somebody who has left homosexuality. And the teacher, who happened to be a student teacher, he said, well, sure, if you can find somebody. I was like, that's not a problem. There's ministries that help people with this. So I called up a friend of mine. I interviewed this lady who had been in the lesbian lifestyle for like 40 years. And then I had to write my paper. And then the day came when we were supposed to present our findings. And it had to be a 5-minute speech. And I'll never forget it, because one of my best friends, she's still one of my best friends today. I got up there, I started sharing my paper, I started getting kickback from or backlash from people. And this is a Christian college, by the way. And I'm being completely congruent. I'm telling the truth. I'm defending the fact that people have left homosexuality and the biblical worldview that I'm actually holding in this Christian school, even though not everybody in the program held that view. At one point, my friend got up. She literally got up and she stood next to me. And she was somebody who a lot of the people in my program thought that she wasn't a Christian because she was a Catholic. And yet, I have to tell you, she has more integrity than most of the Christians in that class. Because she stood up right next to me and she said, you know what, why don't all of you shut the F up? Because you know what, all Stacy's doing is sharing the result of her research, which you don't like. This has nothing to do, why are you attacking her? I mean, she literally came to my defense. In fact, I actually just got a lovely card from her a couple of days ago. Isn't that pretty? Anyway, so after 20 years, you know, her and I are still good friends, because even she didn't necessarily agree with why I was talking about what I was talking about, but she stood up for me and stood with me when people didn't like hearing what it was that they were uncomfortable with. And, you know, so the bottom line is that if you are honest, even if people disagree with you, they're going to respect you. And what I will tell you happened after that class was the professor of the class came up to me and he said, you know what, I want you to know that I respect you more than anybody else in this class because you actually stood up for what you believe in despite the opposition you knew you were going to get. And that's actually sad, isn't it? That I knew I was going to get opposition in a Christian class on a topic that's clearly laid out biblically, you know? So that's one thing that you can keep in mind. The next thing is that you will have increased confidence and courage. Honest people often feel freer and more confident because they're not managing a web of contradictions and feeling exposure. I have to tell you, that is so true, and I think that's why I think that's part of the reason why people often feel intimidated by me. And I hear this a lot. I hear people say, well, I'm kind of intimidated of you. And I'm like, why are you intimidated of me? And I think that's why. I think ultimately I have courage and I definitely have confidence, and my confidence scares people because they're not congruent and completely honest. See, I don't feel like I have to hide anything. What you see is what you get. If I'm having a bad day, I'll let you know. If I'm having a good day, I'll let you know. But one thing my good friends know is that they don't have to wonder where I'm at. I will tell them it's pretty much what you see is what you get. And that does build your confidence. Why? Because you're not having to shift and hide and all of that. And there are appropriate times for certain things and appropriate boundaries to have for certain things. Like, I'm not going to go into a certain event, if I'm really ticked off and go, hey, everybody, I'm ticked off, that guy's a jerk. I'm not going to do that. I mean, that's stupid, right? But if somebody says, are you happy to be here? I might say, I'm here. Are you having a good day? I might say, after I leave here, I will. I mean, it's just like right now I'm not, I was in a meeting earlier today and I was kind of going back and forth about should I go or not, because I think some of the people in the group are really dull and boring and they waste my time and their like time energy sucks, it's like, but I ended up going to the meeting. And I adjusted my attitude before I went, and I thought, okay, what can I will be able to learn something in this meeting. And I did. I actually did learn something, and I was really glad I went. But I was still congruent with where I was. All right, couple more things. 2 more things. Your social and vocational outcomes, clearer boundaries and decisions. So when you tell the truth about your needs, your limits, and your convictions, it makes it easier to make firm decisions and avoid unhealthy situations, right? So let me say it again. So when you tell your truth about your needs and your limits and your convictions, and I think I gave this example a while back on another video, but earlier this year I went to a conference, and I'm on a very tight income. And I knew my limitations. Anyway, I was invited to a dinner, and it turned out that the dinner was supposed to be at a restaurant where I was informed you're going to have to pay $100 for your dinner. And I said, wait, what? I said, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to go then. I'm canceling. I know you want me there, but I ain't going. And they're like, what? Why? Well, how come? I said, because I don't have $100 to throw at a meal, even if I don't know how good the food's going to be. I am not going to throw away $100 on one meal. That ain't going to happen. And so the organizer, they were like, oh, let me see if I can find a new place. And they did, and I only ended up paying, well, as it turned out, the leader ended up paying for everybody's food. But if I had to pay, it would have been like $20 instead of $100. Which I think is more reasonable. And that was because I was honest. Now, if I had lied and went there feeling all resentful, like, I have to pay $100 for this dinner, then I probably would have just felt angry. Even though I didn't know the leader was going to pay for the meal, but I'm sure the leader who paid for the meal felt better too, because she only ended up paying like $120 as opposed to $500 for the meal. So don't be afraid to let people know what you need, because in the end, most people are reasonable and they will try to accommodate that. All right, the last thing is that when you're honest, there is a possible backlash when exposing wrongdoing. Whistleblowers and those who reveal uncomfortable truths can face harassment, career disruption, and social exclusion, even while acting ethically. And I think that is a big reason why a lot of people don't call out stuff, right? I mean, all you gotta do is look on my videos here about Perry Stone and some of the other false teachers, some of the scumbag pastors who've been busted abusing people. And if you really want to see some verbally abusive comments, go over to Julie Roy's channel, because she calls out stuff. She's a whistleblower essentially, and people don't like it. But here's the thing, you know why those people don't like it? They don't like it because when you expose things and you're telling the truth, guess what? Somebody is going to be held accountable to cleaning that mess up and actually protecting people. And this again goes back to the topic I discussed yesterday about people pleasing. If you want to always please somebody, but you're doing it because you're afraid of telling the truth, you're actually enabling perpetrators to get away with stuff. And you're actually enabling abusers to get away with continuing to abuse people. Now, this is an old statistic. Maybe it's been updated since I read this a long time ago. But did you know that most people who are abused by men in a sexual manner, they have upwards of 100 victims before anybody will report them. Why? Because they're scared. They don't want to have to deal with the backlash. Now, you happen to be looking at somebody who, when I was 12, 13 years old, I actually turned in my guy that abused me, and that just disrupted my whole family system because the secret was out, right? And there was hell to pay. I paid hell for I ended up paying hell for it. But you know what? I don't care at this point because I'm 57 years old now, and I didn't repeat any of the crappy patterns my mom put in my path and taught me, right? I mean, everything she did evil, the Lord came and flipped my life over so I could live a completely better life. But it was work. And it started because I told the truth about something they didn't want exposed. So, you know what? Be bold and stand up and tell the truth. And it will change your life. And you know what else it will do? It will help you to have a better day because you're going to be healthier. You're going to be happier. You're physiologically, you're going to feel better. You're going to be more confident. And this is one thing I can tell you. If you want to grow in confidence, become more honest and become less of a people pleaser. You do those two things, your confidence will increase and more people will listen to you. And I can tell you, I know this from experience. It's not so much that I think I'm great, because I know me. But I mean, this week I've been in a lot of big meetings this week. And as I've sat and I've listened to probably close to 50 different women this week in these groups I've been in, so many of these women are insecure. They're full of self-doubt. They are highly anxious. They're overwhelmed. And they're not confident at all. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, wow, I wish you guys could actually embrace who you are in Christ, know who you are. And I wish you could learn some simple skills that will actually help you to become more confident, less of a people pleaser, and somebody who can actually say no, set some boundaries, feel better about yourself, and actually feel physically better and have less stress in your life. And it is possible. It is possible. So if you've actually watched this far into the video, I want to remind you, today is December 19th. I actually have a special going on this month. For a donation of anything. You can donate $1 to my ministry, and I will give you one coaching session. You can donate $1 3 times. Give me $3 and I'll give you one coaching session. I believe in what I'm doing so much, I'm willing to give it away almost essentially for free because I know it will help you and I know it will change you. So if that's you and you want to do that, click the email below and send me an email and we will set up something for next year and get you started next year on a more confident, healthy path. Because I would love nothing better than to see more confident women out there who are actually taking life by the reins and walking securely and boldly in their faith. So if that's you, join me below and I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you have a better day.